Hey guys, Majin Obama here, and today I want to talk about the big event that's going down this weekend in fighting games. That's right, it's that time of year, EVO 2024. I wanted to make a short viewer's guide like I did last year to kind of give you a primer on what's going on with each of the 8 main titles going into this weekend and kind of what you can look for, what you can expect storyline-wise, maybe something interesting game-wise, or, overall conversations happening about each game that you can look forward to watching play out live. But also, I want to again reiterate this point. This event is kind of like you want to think of it as like the Olympics. I remember like watching the Olympics when I was younger, like, oh man, for one time every 4 years I could pretend to give a shit about track and field or gymnastics or something like that, right? EVO can kind of be the same way for you. If you're even like passively into whatever fighting game, one way that you can make the event more fun for yourself is by maybe kind of having a player or something that you're looking out for in each game. That way, as the event goes on throughout the weekend, you can have yourself invested in some way, shape, or form in whatever's happening whenever it's happening. I really encourage people to do that because, the other thing too is at the end of the event, you might find yourself thinking maybe this game that I thought I didn't really think about before, maybe it turns out pretty cool, and you might find that you like something that you didn't know about before. But with that said, let's get into it. So these are the 8 games. It's going to be Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, Guilty Gear Strive, Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising, Under Night in Birth, Celeste, oh, you need to, whatever, man. Mortal Kombat 1, KOF 15, and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Let's take a look at the overall entry numbers. This year was a record-breaking year for EVO, I believe, in terms of unique entrants. That means there are more unique players that signed up for tournaments in this event than any other EVO previous. I think actually last year was the other record-holding year. But you can see huge numbers for some of the top titles. Now let's talk about the order in which things played out here. If KOF 15 is in the final spot with 375 players, that means they're going to have the Friday night final spot. So what can you look forward to seeing at KOF 15 Top 6 on Friday night? Well, if you watched last year's episode of this video, I talked a lot about how with KOF 15 there was kind of this calm before the storm because China up until that point had travel restrictions, and so it's like almost everything up until that point almost like it mattered. Don't get me wrong, but it almost was like there's an evil threat looming in the background, an incredible threat more or less. And so once the Chinese travel restrictions were lifted and Shanghai was free to roam the world once again, that's when the inevitable happened, right? So we watched basically Avengers Infinity War play out, where EVO 2023 happened and Shanghai again just snaps. He is inevitable, gets an EVO championship win. However, since then, in the major international showdowns for this game since then, he's taken some L's. He's gotten 2nd place and 3rd place respectively at EVO Japan and at the SNK World Championships, thanks in part to ET, players like ET from Taiwan, M-Dash, and Lagia from Japan, who through almost like coordinated efforts in bracket, they kind of teamed up to take him down a peg in bracket like this. Of course, Shanghai's been like some other KOF players. He's been splitting his time between KOF and Street Fighter 6 recently. But the question remains, I think, now that he's kind of like taking these L's, to me, this is almost like Avengers Endgame. Now, can they one more time through players like ET in this bracket? M-Dash and Lagia will not be attending, but who else can step up to help ET potentially take Shanghai down as a major threat? Or can Shanghai part-time win this bracket? And the player group that I'm most looking forward to seeing perform at this event and seeing what their response is to all this is players from LATAM, players from Brazil, players from Mexico. Because the fun thing about this, if you guys don't know, KOF, even though you're looking at it, you're like 375 entrants, that's it. This is usually one of the most fun to watch finals, actually. You should definitely put this on your schedule if you don't, because the international battles that happen, and it's usually it's a very high action, how do I say? It's a usually kind of fast-paced, high-intensity top 6 that usually plays out, or finals for these games that you can really, really get invested in, even if you don't really know the game that well. And I really, really encourage people to check it out. It's always really fun. That said, I think I'm looking forward to, again, I want to emphasize the LATAM players from Mexico, players from Brazil, and a few other countries in between. Usually it's really fun fun because you get players like Xiaohai from China going at it against players from Taiwan, from Korea, from Japan, from North African countries, European countries, Middle Eastern countries. It's all of these players from all these different micro communities all just going at it. It's really, really fun to watch play out because they're all so good too. Check it out, and I'm sure it'll be really, really fun to watch one. Next up is going to be Mortal Kombat 1 with 645 entrants. You'll be able to see the finals for this game on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. And while Mortal Kombat 1 has had its quite a big deal, I think, of drama in the game, outside the game, I don't know how to explain it. But keeping it competition focused, normally with NRS fighting games, you associate them with Sonic Fox dominance, even if it doesn't always play out that way exactly. But by name, there's an association there, right? So players like Sonic Fox, Rewind, Ninja Killer from North America, are of course going to be present. But the cool thing about seeing how MK11 ended going into this game is also the presence of the Latin American and South American scene. So the brothers from Chile, Nicholas and Scorpion Prox, will be present as well. You can see them, they've kind of been going at it back and forth with Sonic Fox and the other American players in this bracket. But also the players from Brazil. Gui Excepcional had a great performance at Final Combat, which I believe they came out of losers the LCQ and put together a pretty high impact performance. So it's about the other players from Brazil, the other players from South America that I think a lot of people are kind of looking forward to. This is always kind of like it's become this kind of tightly knit Battle of the Americas kind of event. It's kind of how Mortal Kombat's gone down. But you know, if I'm being real too, and this is a question I have, to me, I'm thinking right now this community's kind of been like, for warranted reasons, for good reasons, they've been kind of getting cyberbullied recently, just for a lot of reasons. So my thing is, can they put on a show that shows us, the viewers, the player, whatever, the attendees, that people still care about this game like that? You know, can they put on the kind of tournament finals that kind of reminds people like, okay, there actually are people that are still into this game beyond, it's not just about, you know, insane prize pools and stuff like that. There are people that actually just like Mortal Kombat like that. Because to me, honestly, it kind of remains to be seen. I want to be moved. I want them to surprise me with something. Coming up next is going to be Under Night In-Birth 2 Sis Celeste, with 785 entrants, edged out Mortal Kombat 1 in what might be surprising for some people, maybe not surprising for others. But this final is going to be going down on Saturday afternoon after Mortal Kombat. And with this game, it's interesting because for Under Night, basically, since there's no real like strong tour support or anything like that, this is the kind of game where you really are only looking at maybe 3 to 4, and that's being generous, events a year where you have really strong international competition from Asia going at it against the North Americans and everybody else in between, whether it's Europe, LATAM, etc. EVO is obviously going to be one of those big events, right? This game is interesting too because this is actually one of the older titles in this lineup alongside Third Strike. This game started at the end of the arcade era in the early 2010s, and since then, through its console iterations, the community has changed in a lot of ways, and not just in Japan, but also especially in North America. So there's kind of this wave of player pre-pandemic and post-pandemic where you can see a kind of clear division there. And that's interesting because right now, with regards to the players who've been most putting up the strongest performances with this game recently, players like Big Black, Knots, Defiant, those kind of make up some of the top players in America. And they're mostly kind of like the new wave. You want to be looking at those players and seeing how they perform against the onslaught of legacy players from Japan who are coming. Crimson Crusader, Osuhito, Sinaru, Notes, alongside the kind of vanguard in Clear Lamp. Clear Lamp is, of course, your EVO 2019, 2018, I forget, champion for Under Night In-Birth. However, the caveat there is Clear Lamp has been coming to America, I think, for 2 or 3 different events so far for Under Night 2, and he's got his back blown out by the new guard and other players from the Americas. He has not had a really, really easy time putting up strong performances for this game. So the question is, like, is the new guard in North America just that strong? Or, you know, is Clear Lamp the Raditz in this equation? And actually, it's maybe one of the older heads that are supposed to come out here and do damage, you know? Crimson Crusader, of course, you know, recently got 2nd place at EVO Japan, still in tip-top shape. So I think a lot of people are probably looking at these players to put up really, really strong performance. But there's also players from from Canada in the mix. Can't forget about Mo Sin as well from Europe coming out. But this game should be able to, you can catch it on Saturday afternoon after MK, and it's gonna be right before the next game on the list, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, with over 1,101 entrants in 2024 for a single entry tournament is crazy. And I look forward to it just because I want it to be a cruel reminder of just what kind of game this game is. This game has a fanboy following element to it that is, I think sometimes they kind of forget reality. I'm one of the fanboys, that's the thing. If you watched it, or if you missed out, I should say, on this game in EVO Japan, it was won by none other than Sho with his trademark Yoon play. And when I say cruel reminder, I think the way that this final is going to play out on Saturday evening is going to be just that, a cruel reminder of what kind of game this game is. I expect a lot of Chun-Li, I expect a lot of Yoon, but the cool part is also going to be watching for players that we know and love, and also the character specialists that don't play those characters in between, and seeing how far they can go, right? So when it comes to like the American following, man, you got to talk about players like Amir, Justin, Vi in the mix, Jimmy J. Train, Emphy, Mr. Naps. There's a lot of players that signed up for this event, a lot of legacy North American players. I see Dagger G on the list as well. Man, that dude's a beast. Arlieth, Chris, that 5-star. There's a lot of legends on this list, obviously. But the JP contingency, check this out. Sho, of course, who won EVO Japan. Rao, Hayao, Tominaga. I think Justin brought Tominaga out. Expect that. That is that guy is some guy. Makoto sucks. She sucks to fight against. She's not fun to play. I hate her. That guy's pretty fun to watch though. You'll see why. The one-touch potential that he brings to the table, you'll see. It's pretty chaotic. But MOV, the legend, 3-time SBO champion, won one time with a broken hand. Umezono, Issei representing as well. Kokujin, a lot of fan favorites from Japan going to be going out. Also, shout outs to Ryan Hart and Yaz, okay, coming out all the way from Europe trying to do some damage in this bracket. Those dudes also have a really, really strong history with this game. Yaz in particular, I think he stayed in Japan for quite some time. Hayao is maybe somebody to look out for if you want to watch, find some Twitter clip moments. I think he's likely to produce one. We'll see how it goes in this bracket, but that's Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. It should be fun to watch regardless. If nothing else, as like for the novelty or as a reminder of kind of what the game really is like. Granblue Fantasy vs. Rising with over 1,377 entrants will be the next game Sunday morning in the arena. And the big story with this game, to me, is the champion of it, Gamera from Japan. He's a very, let's say, eccentric individual. He has had a really, really strong competitive history with this game. Long list of wins, right? He's already an EVO champion. EVO Japan champion, right? But at this recent EVO Japan for Granblue Fantasy vs. Rising, he actually got second place. He took an L. So to me, the story going into this event is, can he get back on top? Can he get back on top? It sounds kind of dumb. Just like, oh, 1 second place finish, he's washed. It's not quite like that, but with a player rather that you see so much dominance with, and it's been really a struggle for lots of other players to try to find wins over. For that kind of player to get second place like that, that's kind of a big deal. So to me, it's about seeing him try to make the run to get back on top, while you have to deal with this huge contingency of like North American landmines in the bracket. There's a lot of people who signed up for this event, obviously way more than I thought would. Congratulations to the Granblue community. That's great for them. 1,377 entrants is nothing to scoff at. But the big theme for this one to me is players like Gamera, the other JP following in this event, Torodol, Kinari, Ren, Score. But you can see all the North American players here that many of them have been mainstays for the game, at least since Rising came out. But we'll see how this one plays out in the arena Sunday morning. That brings me to Guilty Gear Strive. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot to say. Yeah, it's Tempest versus the world, man. Can Daru get a dubby? We'll see. It's Tempest versus the world. You can see, man. Leffen, Virik, Zando, Slash, Latif, they're all coming out. Tempest, Umi Show versus this group. And then this group, how, the North American players, where do they factor into this? Jonathan Tene, Lord Knight, etc., etc. You guys see. Next, Tekken 8. Okay, here we go. 4,646 entrants for Tekken 8. It's going to be Sunday afternoon/evening in the arena. And this event so far, to me, it's a big road stop for the Tekken World Tour as a Master Plus event, the second and last Master Plus event. It's a big opportunity for a lot of players to be able to get some points for the Tekken World Tour. But to me, honestly, this was kind of wide open. You know, you don't really have like a really strong Arslan Ash knee rivalry going into this one like you did last year or anything like that. It's really just about who can become the first inaugural champion of Tekken 8 at EVO. But what I will say is this, something that a micro point that I'm kind of looking forward to. So far on the Tekken World Tour, there is one country that has really kind of like struggled, and that is America, actually. You know, it's a new game. Obviously, not every player is going to adapt to it at the same speed, but some of the best in North America that we know have kind of struggled to put up really strong, high impact wins in Tekken 8 international showdowns so far. And so what I'm kind of looking forward to is seeing, you know, with the history that Tekken has at EVO, where usually at this event, there is usually an American player who can kind of stand up and stand out, put together a really big performance on the stage like that. So I'm looking at the players from America that both get to travel and then the ones that don't. Can one of these guys put together a big performance that reminds people, yes, the North American players are a force to be reckoned with even still. So we're looking at players like Shadow, Fear, Ty, Joey Fury, Anakin, Jimmy J Trans in the bracket, alongside, you know, the whole slew of North American players that you can see at a lot of the events that are hosted stateside. This is a really big opportunity for them to put on a really, really big performance, you know? And the other thing too is I want to say, like, with Tekken 8, the way it's gone so far is there's an opportunity, or something you should look forward to, is there's certain kinds of characters in Tekken, like maybe a Yoshimitsu or King players, for example, where you don't really see people hop around on a lot of different characters and land on them. Usually the people that play these kinds of characters are specialists, usually. So far, with regards to major international competitions, you haven't seen too many character specialists be heavily rewarded in terms of like really, really strong performances that they leave behind. So my thing is, players that play these kinds of characters, can you see one maybe put together a big performance and be able to get to punch their tickets to the final, put on a good show for people on Sunday night? We'll see. And that's going to bring us to Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6, of course, has been, you know, you've had a lot of people been chasing for the EWC qualifiers at some events leading up until now, not unlike Tekken 8. But the story, when you ask people what the story of Street Fighter 6 is up until now, it's kind of hard to explain because of how compartmentalized the game is, kind of. You know, where it's like this region's really focused on Street Fighter League. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like the league, the tour up until now has not really been that compelling. Uma got his dub and then just like rode off into the sunset watching VTubers on his phone or some shit like that, you know? So for Street Fighter 6, when you think about the players that have had major event wins so far, I kind of put all of them into the same category. And when I do that, there's one player in my mind that stands out with this, and that's Mena. Mena, to me, you can talk about Kakeruya Gamers Day, you can talk about Big Bird at EVO last year, you could talk about, you know, when you go down the list of Street Fighter 6 big wins, Mena at EVO Japan, that to me is right up there with Angry Bird's win at EVO last year. Being able to go in Japan and win that event there the way he did it, and especially considering right now for Mena, I feel like EVO is part of like the big three that he hasn't won up until now. And so you got to imagine he's going into this event with a lot of motivation, even though, you know, it's a new version and he seems on some level kind of like has some misgivings, I think, about like some character changes and stuff like that. To me, he's had a tougher time, I think, maintaining that same level of consistency post patches. You know, since EVO Japan, you've now had 2 characters added to the game essentially, and it is a different version. He's struggled, I think, to maintain the same level of consistency, but he's still such a threat in the bracket. And again, this is the one event that he has not won. So to me, this is just me. What I'm looking forward to is seeing Mena versus the world, or the world versus Mena, depending on how you look at it. You know, is Japan gonna come into this event with the slew of players that are coming from Japan for Street Fighter 6 at EVO? Are they kind of looking at it like, okay, you took EVO Japan W, we're gonna take the EVO W, that kind of thing? Or are the players from some of these other regions that are very, very strong, are they gonna be able to stand in the way of all these guys? Who knows? Street Fighter 6 is such a toss-up to me, just with how it plays out. It's weird too, because there's consistency within the volatility. You know, it's really really hard to explain. But to me, I'm looking at a player like Mena. I'm like, man, at this point, this EVO win is really that's the only really event that you don't have on your, stamped in your passport, essentially. You got to imagine he's going into this event with a particularly high motivation, to try to resolve that, especially, man, after the EVO Japan win that he just had. Imagine if he could do EVO Japan in an EVO or something like that. But anyway, that's just an idea of some kind of, I would say other players to look out for too, right? From Japan. Maybe looking at players like Momochi, who have been doing really, really well with Ed. Topanga just wrapped up, and a really young player named Kobayan actually won it. I think he's only like 21, 22. But players like Momochi and players like Kakeru rounded out the top 3 of that kind of event. Hikaru got 4th, I want to say. So this crop of players from Japan that plan on attending, I wonder, like, where did they stand in all this? Is this something that maybe, again, like I said, are they looking at EVO like, what, we let EVO Japan slip by, Mena came out here and just dunked on us, but we're going to take EVO kind of thing. That's another maybe dynamic you guys can look forward to developing. But with that said, that's pretty much all. That's all the games that you have to look forward to. Of course, there's still the community showcases. If you guys are into some of the games that are not selected as main titles this year, be sure to go tune in and support that. They're going to be streaming a lot of those as well. So with that said, that brings this video to a close. Once again, I'm Majin Obama. If you guys are at EVO and you see me, be sure to stop and say what's up. I'll be there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the changes that they've implemented this year are going to play out and how the event's going to feel. This is going to be kind of a different year for EVO. But with that being said, make sure you guys save up. If you're watching from home, start saving up and make sure you can come out to the next one, because I think this one's going to be a lot of fun. I'll catch you guys next time. Everybody be easy.